Are you looking for a build that has massive poison AoE damage and is melee based? Look no further. Welcome to the best Andariel Visage build in Season 3 for rogues. This build has massive AoE clear and can cruise through T100 faster than or as fast as the meta precision builds this season. I believe this build has the potential to be very competitive in the new Gauntlet content coming out, and I'll definitely be trying it out there. Now, at first glance, you may think that this is a Flurry build. This is not a Flurry build. This is an Andariels build. Almost all of the damage you see is coming from Andariels, and a decent amount from Doombringer. Everything in this build has been carefully chosen to best maximize our Andariel damage. As you look at this run, you'll see a big green AoE circle and a little pop sound that happens very frequently. That's Andariels going off if you're not familiar with it. And you will notice that the health bars of the enemies kind of get grayed out a bit, showing that poison damage. And you'll see, especially on elites, that stacks up very fast. And then I also oftentimes just run away as I let them kind of drain down their health very quickly and die as I go to the next pack for further clear speed. Now, in terms of ratings, how would I rate this compared to, say, other builds? I would say that this build has a 5 out of 5 AoE clear, as it has the best clear speed that I've used this season, right next to Penshot. I'd say it has 5 out of 5 speed, as we have near max movement speed, 2 mobility skills, and near max attack speed. You'll notice that those punctures come out very fast. And then in terms of ease of use, I'd rate this at a 3 out of 5. It does require using multiple skills, and it does require some practice to get full effectiveness and used to making sure that you have all of the various damage buffs up. Now, Andariels, though, it does pretty much just pop everything around you, so even if you're not using it at full effectiveness, it still is going to work really well, and it's pretty easy to use at a just normal level as you get used to it, so I won't worry too much. Now, in terms of fun, I would rate it at 5 out of 5 because it feels great to use, super fast, super snappy, and it's fun to watch everything just kind of melt around you. In terms of boss clear speeds, I would give this a 3 out of 5. It kills bosses faster than Penshot, assuming that the person isn't swapping to some one-shot build, so obviously that would be faster. And your regular Twisted Blade and Flurry builds, but it is slower than Rapid Fire or Barrage, but not by a whole lot as long as they're not swapping again. And it does have really great stagger potential because we have multiple forms of crowd control, especially with Flurry with the stun. If you take advantage of that, that builds up stagger really fast, and then we can burst down the boss from there. And it doesn't have the ability to switch to a one-shot build, but it still is going to kill your T100 bosses in like 30 seconds and Andariel in like 30 seconds. So it still gets the job done. Welcome to the training ground, where we're going to break down this build entirely. So first off, let's talk about how this build is designed to make Andariels do lots of damage. So there are 3 things that we need to make Andariels do a lot of damage. We need we need lots of attack speed, as you'll see in this build. 2, we need lots of lucky hit chance in order to make it proc more often. And 3, we need lots of things that scale our damage through multipliers and conditionals such as versus close or versus crowd controlled, things like that. And you will see that throughout this build. Everything in this build is designed to scale Andariels, and it also happens to scale Doombringer mostly the same as well. So these 2 things can actually build up quite a lot of damage. And what skills are we using and how do those do that first off? So first off, we've got Puncture. Puncture is the best basic skill for this because it has a high lucky hit chance, 45%, and it gives us 3 chances to proc a lucky hit by hitting it 3 times. Also, it just attacks really fast because it uses our melee weapons and not our bow weapon attack speed. And then we use Flurry. Flurry is not for the damage, it is for everything else that Flurry brings, primarily that attack speed bonus, and then also the stun. So when we evade through, this stuns, which helps us stay alive, but also it helps scale because our control glyph will give us 20% more damage when enemies are stunned. And then we have the two imbuements here. Now, the imbuements are not for damage. They are for scaling Andariels and Doombringer. So, Poison Imbuement actually will scale our Andariel's Visage because we are going to be taking, find the Paragon Board here. We are taking Eldritch Bounty. So when you attack with an imbued skill, you gain that max resist, and more importantly, 20% increased damage for that imbuement's element for 9 seconds. So when we use Poison Imbuement, all of our poison damage, including Andariel's Visage, gets 20% more damage. And then same thing with Shadow Imbuement, that is going to help scale our Doombringer damage since it is shadow damage. But also there's the modifier there that enemies infected by Shadow Imbuement take 12% increased non-physical damage from you for 8 seconds. So this again scales our Andariel's damage. And then we do take Shadow Step and Concealment. These are for mobility, but more importantly, it is to proc our Tibalt's Will and also get us out of crowd control effects. So Tibalt's Will, we get 40% damage while we're unstoppable and for 4 seconds after, and gives us some primary resource. So both of these give us unstoppable, so we can use either one in order to get that 40% damage bonus. Now, what about the rest of our gear? Well, on our breastplate, we are taking Juggernaut. This gives us a lot of armor. This allows us to not have to roll armor percent on our other gear. You notice I don't have armor percent on my amulet, don't have it on my pants, of course, and I also don't have it on my breastplate. And you can see that I still reach that armor cap of 13,200, which is the cap for T100. And then we have Frostburns. Frostburns is going to give us that attack speed, which we need, but also it is going to give us a chance to freeze, which is really nice because whenever we freeze, we do 60% more damage to the enemies. And this scales with Andariels as well because on my amulet, I do take Frigid Finesse for that +3, which gives me a total of +6 or 60% damage when frozen. And then we are, of course, taking Tibalt's Will for that 40%. And then our boots, we are taking Shared Misery. This is going to help us spread that Frostburn freeze effect all over the place, as well as the slow from puncture. And then on our crossbow, we are taking Elements for that 60% increase damage bonus to our poison and our shadow on that rotation, that 7-second rotation there. And then on our amulet, we are taking Rapid. Rapid makes us attack faster with our basic skills, 45% faster, getting us closer to that attack speed cap. Starless Skies is also a really great addition to this build because this gives us another 40% damage that will scale our Andariels and our Doombringer. And what you'll see sometimes is that when I go into a fight, oftentimes I'll actually just spam Flurry a few times just to get it started, because we attack so fast. And actually, just throw on my Flurry. That's the correct ring there. And then we've got the Flurry there. Reset this so my pet isn't making all this noise here. And then on this ring here, we are taking Flurry. This just gives us that AoE effect so that we hit more enemies and also stun more enemies, which is nice. And then we've got Ashura's. This does a couple things that's really nice. One, it has lucky hit chance, and it also has crowd controlled enemies, which scales with our close quarters combat. But more importantly, it does give us more attack speed, so we can get up to 30% more attack speed with this, which gives us more hits. And then Doombringer. Doombringer, this gives us a lot of survivability with that max life and healing chance, but it also gives us a lot of damage because all these things scale the Doombringer, and Doombringer will oftentimes be hitting for like 500,000 to 1 million AoE damage very, very frequently. Let's talk about a couple alternative gearing options that might help you guys out. So if you find that you feel too squishy and that you're dying as you gear up to this build and get everything, one thing that you might want to try is not use Tibalt's Will, but actually just use regular pants. These will make you a lot more tanky and make you be able to kind of just cruise through and not really try very hard. But if you want to go fast this, you'll want to use Tibalt's Will. But for the pants, basically just your typical DR pants with a bunch of various DR max life, and then use Might. And then if you don't have Starless Skies, a good alternative is a ring with Intercom, and then your typical stats, sort of like my other ring, having things like max life, lucky hit chance. Ideally, I would rather have crowd control, damage versus crowd control. I just don't have it yet. And then some other stat like DR versus close. And that would also work very well. Now, of course, intercom, you do have to stand still. And this is actually a good ring to throw in instead of like Flurry, for example, the encircling blades versus a boss, because encircling blades doesn't really do anything versus a boss, but this can give you 30% more damage, and that can help you out a lot with boss clear speeds. And then, of course, we are taking combo points. And then what about the abilities? So we can just see the talent tree here. We've got through fundamental puncture. One thing you'll notice is I'm only taking 1 point into Flurry. Again, Flurry really doesn't do much damage. Our damage comes from our other sources like Andariels. So we don't need a whole lot of points. And then through Advanced Flurry for that stun. And the stun is actually really nice for while stunning, but also versus bosses, this can give you some really fast stagger effect. So for example, if I go onto the boss here, we can see that I can build up my stagger really quick by evading through. So if I say hit and then I evade through and I hit, see how much stagger that just gave? It just went up to like half in just one evade through. So we can build up stagger really quick with this build by using that stun. So quick tip there for if bosses become a relevant thing in the future, or for the gauntlet. Dang it, Pet, stop it. Okay. And then we are taking Sturdy and Siphoning Strikes for more survivability. Stutter Step, this isn't necessary, but just gives us a little bit more movement. And then Disciplined Shadow Step so that we can be spamming our Shadow Step more often. What you're really going to want to be doing is using this as much as possible so that you can keep your Tibalt's Will buff up as much as possible. And then Concealment, you can kind of save that for as needed if you end up getting stunned. But as you get used to the build, you could also use this offensively as well. And then we're taking Weapon Mastery for just some more increased damage there from that Swords and Daggers. Agile for dodge. We just need 1 point in concealment. We don't need anything here. And then Exploit Malice, more damage. Just 1 point into the imbuements through Mixed Shadow Imbuement for more non-physical damage. Poison Imbuement through Mixed Poison Imbuement. This is just so that we have a chance of getting more often resets. And then we are taking all of the poison passives here for more attack speed and survivability and damage, poison damage. 3 points into Frigid Finesse for that more damage when frozen. And then 2 points into Innervation for some more energy and more lucky hit chance with Second Wind. And then we do take Haste for more mobility. And then Close Quarters Combat, we are scaling by getting more damage versus crowd controlled. So this gives us 34% more damage multiplicatively, as well as another 30% more attack speed. And because we are playing Close Quarters Combat, this is very easy to proc with both Puncture and Flurry. Basically use these and you get Close Quarters Combat. Shouldn't be an issue there. Okay, how about the Paragon? With Paragon, we are taking the Tracker Glyph. This makes our poison damage effects last 33% longer. This is basically going to make your Andariels do more damage, and it will end up lasting longer. So oftentimes you'll see me basically get a mob low enough so that the poison will just kind of tick away and kill him, and I'll just leave him and run to the next pack while he's dying. And then we've got Bane here, which just gives us another chance to do about 10% more damage from our poison on average. And we are taking the Cheap Shot Legendary Note as well, since we do crowd control a lot, and this gives us another 25% multiplicative damage. This board in general, just really great for lots of different crowd control nodes here, like this one and this one. And then over here, we are taking the control glyph. This is going to be the board that's going to really stack up that damage the crowd controlled. Got 145% there. And then it also gives us increased damage multiplicatively to slowed, chilled, frozen enemies that we see there, as well as just some nice resists. And then over here, we are going into the No Witness board here for picking up Canny with the glyph here, as well as just some more HP nodes here. Canny again is going to scale up so that as we do non-physical damage, like our poison, Doombringer, that we stack up a debuff on them for more damage. This is really nice for bosses especially, or more tanky guys. And then we do take onto the next board, being the Tricks of the Trade board. We do take Devious. Again, we crowd control a lot. This is going to give us another 10% multiplier in damage, as well as a defense node and some more damage for elites. And then we do take onto the Eldritch Bounty board here, as we saw before, for that damage multiplier by using our imbuements. So whenever we use these imbuements, this is going to be activated, scaling our Andariels and our Doombringer. And also up here on the Cunning Stratagem board, we take this primarily because we needed some more armor here. And then we take the Exploit Glyph, which is really nice for getting vulnerable up really, really fast and being able to take out packs basically instantly. And for the Construct, what are we running here? So we've got Flash of Adrenaline here with the Duration Tactical and Genesis support. This gives us 50% more damage. It scales up our Andariels and Doombringer some more. And these just basically make the uptime basically infinite. And then if you want to go like full damage here, you go Frigid, Poison, and Swift support in order to spread the poison more and get your Frigid on enemies a bit faster with Swift support. Alternatively, if you want to go more defensive, which I'd probably recommend on this build most of the time, but maybe for the gauntlet you want to go full offensive if defense isn't an issue. Instead, I would take Safeguard support for another 15% DR and Fortify for an extra 10% DR, which can be pretty nice for survival. And here's a T100 boss kill if you're wondering how this does on single target versus bosses. And one thing you'll notice is that I do build up the stagger bar pretty quickly. Simply roll through him, hit him with the stun from Flurry, as well as Frostburn, building up a lot of stagger as it procs. And once we stagger, we do a lot of damage, as well as simply just hitting them with lots of Andariel poison. And it took about 30 seconds, which is pretty good. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Thanks.